You know, one of the big problems that I encounter when encouraging Christians to share their faith is that so many people are afraid of just one big issue. And that's just simply this. What if that person asks me a question that I don't know the answer to? Well, we're going to be looking at not only that, but all sorts of kind of tactics that you can use to help be effective in sharing your faith in Christ. And my guest here today is coming to us all the way from the United Arab Emirates, and his name is Jacob Varghese. Varghese. I never will get your name right. No matter how hard I try, I seem to always make a mistake. So please forgive me. And before we get too much into our content here, tell me what time it is there in your part of the world.
Well, it's 11:30 p.m., so just 30 more minutes into the next day.
Yeah, okay. So we're almost exactly a whole half world apart.
Yes.
180 degrees apart because it's almost at noon here in California. And so we have the opportunity, isn't it wonderful, to connect through technology like this?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we almost didn't do that. We tried 3 or 4 different platforms.
Yes. But thankfully Zoom worked out.
Yeah, thankfully Zoom worked out. So how about for you, Jacob? You love sharing your faith in Christ with others, and that you are certainly well equipped to do that. What are some of the tactics that you have discovered that have helped you in sharing your faith?
Well, one of the main tactics that I found out to be the most effective, and as it turns out, it is one of the easiest carry, and it's what Greg Koukl unpacks in his book. It goes by the name Tactics, and he calls it as the Colombo tactic. And as many of the audience in the US might be aware, Colombo, the Detective Colombo from the old TV series. So it's about asking questions, and it's very easy. It's almost like it's too good to be true. It's sort of that. It's that easy and that effective, where you place questions, and those questions, and each question might take up maybe 5 to 6 words. That's all there is. And with those 5 words, you are shifting the burden of proof. You're getting in hold of the conversation. You're in the driver's seat of the conversation, and you are directing the conversation where you want it to go. And you get time to think. You get time to calibrate. You get clarity on the other person's view. You are able to prepare yourself for the response. So much gets done. So pressure gets taken off with this very simple and very effective tactic.
Yeah. Hey, I just have to ask you a quick question. Have you ever seen the Colombo TV show?
Nope, I have not. Greg Koukl has informed me that it's a very old TV show. So only those who have been quite old were the people who have seen the first runs.
Yeah, only those people who are quite old. Well, thank you, because I've seen that TV show, but I am quite old. And so you were talking a little bit before our show about the role of character in being a witness for Christ. Speak a little bit about that before we get into these tactics.
Yeah. So basically what it means is that almost all of the people who are aware of Christianity know that Christians speak about loving your enemies and praying for those who persecute you, and Jesus mentioning about turning the other cheek. So they know that Christianity places a lot of emphasis on love and a lot of emphasis on patience. So basically, to put in one word, they know that Christians are all about character and to be like Christ-like. And Christ is this God-man who is so perfect. So when you are engaging in a conversation with a person, be it in a debate, be it casual evangelization or casual interaction, they immediately would like to weigh us or contrast us or compare us with what they consider Christ to be or what they consider Christianity to be. So if my character does not replicate Christ, if my character is rude and harsh and impolite and stubborn and arrogant, which many of us at times end up being in our conversations, be it even when we're sharing about love, if that is what is going to be, then the other person would find it very hard to see Christianity is actually true, because they would be asking the question, well, why don't I see that playing out in this person's life? Why do I see that this person is very stubborn? Why do I see that this person is very rude towards me? So character, in addition to many other points, is very key when we are evangelizing. Maybe you can get away being harsh or rude in a debate, but not when we are sharing the gospel and sharing about God's love for others. I mean, it's hard to get away from that.
Yes, exactly. While you were speaking, I was reminded of that passage in First Corinthians chapter 13. And it says there that love is patient and love is kind. It is not rude. Now, it goes on to list a number of other characteristics, but certainly when we're sharing our faith, that we need to make sure that regardless of how the conversation flows, we are patient and we're kind and we're not rude. And so, and tell me, Jacob, let's move a little bit away from the character issue for a moment and talk about this first tactic, this first of the set of tactics that we're going to be exploring together in our videos. And that's this Columbo tactic that you mentioned. Speak a little bit more about that, and where would you start with that?
Right. So one of the key distinctions that we have to keep in mind is we are talking about tactics and not about strategies. And though the difference might seem trivial to us, strategy, as Greg points out, and it's a very clear distinction. Though it seems subtle to us, afterwards we see that it's very clear and very distinct. Strategy is talking about the overall picture, the broader image. And Greg used the example of the invasion on D-Day. So take the beach, push out the Nazis. That is a strategy. But tactics is what each soldier has to do upon hitting the beach on D-Day. Now, some of my gamer friends who might be in the audience recall the EA Sports Medal of Honor 2007 game. And one of my favorite missions in that is Mission Overload, where I am one of the Allied soldier hitting D-Day on the morning and hitting the beach and trying to advance towards the bunker. So though the mission objective is to reach the bunker and take out the gunners, each soldier at that point has to figure out to dodge bullets, to help the soldiers in need, to get medics, to advance, to break the fence. So those are minute, instant decisions and steps to be taken. So we are talking about tactics in a very specific sense, not in the overarching sense of making that person or convincing that person to be a believer, if I may say so. Mm-hmm. So the first point of the Columbo tactic is the first question, or the first part is the question which says, well, what do you mean by that? Now, the person need not ask exactly in that same sense. Now, if you're having a casual conversation with a person, you can word it differently. If you're having a very high literature style conversation, you can word it more complex. But the gist is that you're asking that person to clarify. That's basically what the question is. Well, what do you mean by that? And this is why it is very important to ask of this question, because most of the times that I've seen is that many people don't present argumentation. They present assertions. So they come along and say, religion is the result of socio-biological political evolution. Well, and so I don't know what they mean by socio-biological evolutionary or political evolution. I don't know if they have done proper research into it. I don't know if they even understand it. So the first thing I do is, okay, what do you mean by that? And it gets done so many things with that one question. First, it engages me into the conversation without me jumping on board and defending and saying, no, belief in God is not so. So it engages me into the conversation in a very relaxed manner. It does not force me to try and defend my point, because I'm just clarifying his point. I'm clarifying her point and asking questions. The other key thing that I figured out happens is that it makes that person to clarify their point. And here's why that is important. Oftentimes, people don't really know what they are talking about. It's often empty rhetoric. They might hear Richard Dawkins put out some quibble in a debate, and they would pick up that sentence and just drop it in midair, like out of context, out of anything, and then expect us to try and respond to it while they sit back and relax and see us squirm at those sentences. So what it does is that when I ask them the question, what do you mean by that? I am inviting them back into the conversation. Or you've made that statement, so I'm not going to jump in and defend it. You need to clarify what you mean.
Mhm.
The other thing is, and this other point is, uh, brings to light our humility and our cordiality, is I am making sure that I really understand what they actually mean, because I don't want to distort their point. At the end of the day, if I'm doing a straw man fallacy and I'm attacking a completely different point from what they're making, not only am I wasting my time and their time and my effort and energy, it also makes me look like someone who has no idea about what I'm talking, because they would be wondering, well, this is not what I spoke about. Why is he speaking about something that is completely different to what I'm speaking? So all of these points, now when I list it, it looks hefty, but all of these points, these key advantages gets undertaken when you ask the simple question, what do you mean by that? So it takes pressure off you, it engages you in the conversation, it enables that person to clarify what they're saying, and also it enables me to clearly understand what exactly they are talking about.
Yeah, those are great observations. And that when it comes to this particular point of asking someone, what do you mean by that? Are there additional things that you would like to add to your comments or examples, or are there additional tactics that you'd like to explore at this time?
Well, if you look at the Colombo tactic alone, the Colombo tactic is sort of like parted in three phases. So, three questions, so to speak. But I would say that the first point, when I ask this question, it's best that I leave it at that way. Now, I can add in, like I said, you can modify the way you ask the question. It doesn't mean that you should ask only, what do you mean by that? Like I said, if your conversation is very casual, you can use your common usage terms and convey the point. Basically, you're asking that person to clarify. So, however way you can pose that question, you are free to do so. But since we are beginning into the conversation, it is very paramount that I figure out what exactly they're talking. I would rather drop it at that way, make sure that they know what I am asking is, that they clarify their point, and then
Mhm.
wait for them to clarify.
Yeah,
Because like I mentioned, most of when people don't know what they're talking, I might be going after a straw man. So my maybe the example that I have in mind, maybe some of the rebuttals that I have in mind might be misguided. They may be well placed at some points, but they may be misplaced at other points. So I would relax at that point, ask them to clarify, and wait for them to open up about their positions with the first question.
that's great. That's great. I appreciate those comments. And so, what we're going to be doing in our time together, our visits together, is that we're going to be going through some of these various elements of the tactics that Jacob is sharing with us, that he has learned from Greg Koukl's book, Tactics, and that this will help you to be a more effective Christian witness for your and when you have the opportunity to speak with others yourself. And so, what we want to do at this point is that we're just going to stop with this first one, and then we're going to circle back around to these tactics and begin exploring some of the other ones. And so, for now, that first one is just simply this: what do you mean by that? Or some sort of variation of that question. And instead of having all of the anxiety that that I need to defend every point, or I need to rebut every point, or I need to prove the gospel, or something of that nature, just learn to relax a little bit, you know, and, and,
Exactly.
and ask somebody, what do they mean by that? Jacob, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning or this evening, depending on.
This midnight even.
Yeah, I hope that we'll be able to continue with our conversation and walk through each one of these points about tactics that we can use to be more effective in our when we share our faith with others.